Ooh, and we're recording.
Yay!
Ooh.
Hi, my name is Sam.
My name is Mason.
And you know it's good when you hear right company. Okay, even though I have a delay, that sounded awful to me.
Yeah, that was bad on my end too.
Okay.
I zoned out halfway through speaking, and then you went to like you were on Broadway for a moment. You were like, Raikon Topini, and it was like, whoa, what happened here?
Okay, so just FYI for you guys, if some of you are watching and are wondering why we always started with Raikon Topini, it's because all of the series on GMMTV always start with a lady saying, Raikon Topini, and then she goes into the rest of her disclaimer speech. Mm-hmm. And it is now a meme in the Thai boys love community, so much so that recently on my timeline, a gentleman with the Raikon Topini warning tattooed on his knee showed up.
I saw that. That was a choice.
It was a choice, but I mean, people get buttholes tattooed to their belly buttons, so I really can't say who does what with their body. Mm-hmm. But yeah, all that being said, for those of you who are wondering why do we always start the show that way, it is because it is one of the universally acknowledged boys love memes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
even though today we're reviewing a Japanese movie.
But it's our tagline. Unless we come up with something better, this is our tagline. So sorry guys, you just got to live with it.
Yeah. Okay. So this week we watched I Can Hear the Sunspot / Hidamari ga Kikoeru, which is the Japanese title. And it's based off of a manga that I believe is still going. I was going to reread the manga this week, but then I moved. And honestly, I didn't have the time. So I just watched the movie. But it's based on a manga of the same title. And from what while I was watching it, I do feel like it's pretty consistent with the manga. For the most part, I mean, I feel like there are some scenes that were maybe condensed and they took the essence of a couple chapters and boiled them down into one scene, which makes sense because the movie's only an hour long. But I think for the most part, it was pretty true to the manga, from what I'm remembering, but also take everything that I say about the manga with a grain of salt today.
Okay, so I'm going to do thumbnail poses right now.
What? What are you doing? Hear no evil, see no evil?
One of you can't hear and one of you talks really loud.
Okay.
So that's my pose for the day. Should you do the synopsis or shall I?
You may if you'd like.
There's a kid who's losing his hearing. There's a kid who talks too loud. Relationship begins and ensues.
That's it. They're both in college, and then the one boy posts oh, I need someone to take notes for me during class, and the other one is like, I'll do it if you give me lunch every day, and he's like, fair, I'll do it. It's cheaper than what it was going to be, so here you go.
So, you saying that, I feel like you have the benefit of the manga behind you, because I spent the hour watching this thinking this was obviously made only for people who have read this before. I just felt like there was a lot of stuff missing, or maybe they were concentrating on the wrong things. But by the time that hour was over, I was extremely unsatisfied.
Yeah. The pacing was weird. Okay, so the two boys meet, right? And they're kind of getting to know each other. And so their names are Kohei, who is the kid who can't hear. He's much more quiet, more reserved. And then Taichi, who is very loud, very every anime protagonist. He's fucking Naruto, okay? He's running around acting like Naruto. And 15 minutes in so we're 15 minutes into the movie, they're kind of just becoming friends, and they go to the cafeteria for lunch, and these two boys are speaking ill of Kohei, and Taichi turns and punches one of them. I just remember being this feels this doesn't feel very consistent for the character we have. Also, y'all met 15 minutes ago in this movie. This feels very soon. So the pacing is super weird.
I just thought that I was looking at a Japanese reinterpretation of Can from Love by Chance.
Well, that's because like 60% of anime characters are Can from Love by Chance and have that vibe.
Sad facts. But yeah, it just, that energy he was giving me was exactly like when Mean would show up on the scene and Can be like, you can't talk about my friends like that. Like that's what it felt like.
He talks like he's speaking from a manga instead of like a real human being. And I think that was a bad choice on the director's standpoint because most of the characters were pretty normal. Had like, actually like, I remember this, Taichi has a friend who, I thought the actor was very good. He was very natural, very normal. Thought it was nice. So was Kohei's mom was really sweet. I liked her a lot. But then Taichi is just like an anime character in a world where it just feels weird. I just think they should have made him like a loud talker and not like speak like he is talking from an anime, you know, because everyone else was like talking like more or less how like a human being would talk, except for Taichi. It was a little weird.
Yeah, Taichi was yelling in the first scene that we met him. Like, he wasn't just talking loud. He was, like, yelling all the time.
Uh-huh.
So when his friend's like, you know, why'd you get fired from your job? The boss said it's because I'm rude! It's like,
yeah.
Who does that in real life?
No one.
So I guess I had a hard time with that. I mean, this hour, I could feel at every turn that there were little things that they were focusing on that they're like, if you read the manga, then this means something to you. And I just was like, okay, but what does it mean? Like the first time they show the hamburger bento and they're like, hamburger? I'm like, okay, I bet there's a story here. But I totally feel like I don't know that story. And then like with the doctor, the way the doctor was running through his prognosis, I'm like, I feel like there's more to this. But they just like hit the hot spot real quick.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult to follow as somebody who's not familiar with the property. And also it just kind of made it feel a little boring because it's like slow pans of certain scenes and places that may mean something, but it doesn't mean anything to me. So I'm not sure why we're just standing outside in the rain.
I think it was just they were trying to make an atmosphere. I don't think some of that stuff was necessarily, this is a nod to the manga. I mean, it might have been taken from a scene from the manga, but I feel like Japan does that a lot. Japan, in anime and in their live action, they have a lot of like weather shots that are just shots to create atmosphere and mood and less of storytelling.
If you only have an hour to tell a story, I don't really need no atmospheric shots. Like, real, I need you to get on with it. You know, and I think that it really bothered me because of the lack of romance building for this particular story. So I'm assuming that at the end of the story, these two have decided to become romantically involved, but that's not actually clear.
It's really unclear. That's not handled well at all.
Yeah, like at the end, it almost seemed like he's just like, we're still friends. That's what it felt like. It didn't feel like reciprocated romance. And that kiss, can we talk about that kiss for a minute?
Yeah, it was bad.
I'm just gonna, for the viewers at home who haven't seen the movie, let me give you a demonstration. Sorry, Vernon. That was the kiss. Uh-huh. I mean, it was two people who apparently had like lots of garlic bread earlier in the day and were like, let's not linger in this contact because it's gonna be uncomfortable for both of us. But it was bizarre because it was supposed to be a kiss that was supposed to take one person by surprise, but it was so like slow and just weird that I don't know how you could sneak that kiss on anybody.
Right. So,
yeah, I would like you to tell me, because I don't want to spend my time shitting on this movie. I would like you to tell me, if you were cast as the director of this movie and you had the opportunity to make improvements, add things, whatever you want to do, what would be some areas that you would improve upon that would make this to where it could reach maybe an audience that's not familiar with a manga?
Sorry, that last part cut out for me for a second. What'd you say?
Sorry, it's my internet. What would you do to make it to where, for people who aren't as familiar with the original source material, to make it more relatable for them?
I don't know. I think I'd have to go back at the manga, if I'm being honest, just because it is there's not a whole lot to this story at this point in the manga too. I just remember like certain things about it being like, oh, I remember this scene, or hey, I actually remember that outfit. That's from the volume cover. Like there were cute nods to that. But I don't know. I think the second act was a bit too long. I might have reframed it a bit like the plot structure of, hang with me here, the plot structure of The Lion King. Because The Lion King has a really weird like plot structure. So The Lion King has a really, really long opening act. The opening act of The Lion King is literally half the movie. When Simba runs away, that's the end of Act 1. So Act 2 starts with him meeting Timon and Pumbaa, and then Act 3 begins with when he runs away to go back to fight Scar. That's when Act 3 begins. But most of the movie, like a lot of the real memorable bits that people talk about, like Mufasa's death, that's the first act. And I think I would have spent most of the movie really showing them getting to know each other a bit more. And then Act 2 is maybe the stuff with Kohei, or not Taichi meeting like Kohei's mom, things like that. And then the third act would be a bit more of, okay, we got to clarify the romance a little bit. Like have the kiss happen in the midpoint of the story. So the midpoint of the story isn't necessarily in the middle of the movie. It just means like, of the story we're telling, what's the middle of like, the middle of the story you're telling? I don't know how to explain it better than that. The midpoint of The Lion King is when Simba meets Nala when they're adults. That's the midpoint of it. That's the midpoint of the story. So I have the kiss be the midpoint, and then sort of have like the relationship aspects after that. But I would keep the first act pretty long to really establish the characters, who they are, how they know each other, because this could have been like I missed a line of dialogue or something, but I was very confused that they knew who each other were. I didn't realize they were in the same class for a while.
I didn't know if they were in the same class or not. I knew that the note-taking thing was happening, but like they met each other when Taichi tripped over the guardrail, and then he somehow or another convinced Kohei to give him the bento. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen more of like the note-taking stuff. I would have liked to see more of them sharing meals. I would like to see them do other things besides note-taking and sharing meals, because I'm wondering when else do they hang out.
Right.
And then like more of a discussion about the hearing loss. I feel like the hearing loss, it's understood that that's happening, and I really think it's impressive that they built a story around the emotions that someone feels and the loneliness that someone feels when they enter into a disability later in life. Because there's a lot of people who are born with hearing loss, eyesight issues, mobility issues, and they're used to it forever. But you know, you can imagine what a mind trip it would be later in life to lose something that you've always had, right, and then know that not only have you lost a big chunk of what you've always had, but you're destined to lose more of it as time goes on. And so that's a place where I would have liked to have sat in a little bit as well. Like I really liked the flashback where they showed him in the classroom and the teacher's like, you know, we have a student who's got hard of hearing, be kind. And then the kids were being an asshole about it. And it's like, first of all, why? It's not like he did anything wrong, right, but maybe that's just the attitude that people have towards disabilities there. But also, like, you know, the misunderstandings that people have about him and his hearing loss. Like the girls who want him to join the sign language club, and then the guys who think that he's a jerk, and the fact that he is very quiet. Like, I would like to have sat more in the pocket with that, because I do think that that's important, because it seems like the big part of the romance for these two is the fact that Taichi doesn't make him feel the way that everyone else made him feel once he started losing his hearing. He makes him feel the way he did before he lost his hearing. And that, go ahead.
Oh, I think essentially kind of what you're getting at is Taichi feels a bit more like the main character, and I think it kind of should have been Kohei. Like,
yeah,
with Kohei, his feelings, his emotions, and how him sitting is interrupted, and that's when they meet, you know, him sitting alone eating lunch and he's interrupted, you know. But like, it's just weird because so they meet and eat lunch, and Taichi takes Kohei's lunch and eats it, and then the next day he comes back with the sign that says, "Hey, I'll take notes for you," but it's like, it wasn't established that you knew who he was or that this was him even asking about it. And then the next class, he's like, "Oh, you're taking notes for," his friend is like, "Oh, you're taking notes for Kohei over there, right?" And he's like, "Yep, sure am." It's like, what? How'd you know each other? I'm assuming they were classmates, but they didn't tell us.
Well, either they're classmates or Taichi's friend is a classmate of Kohei, and that's why he's like, "Oh, what are you doing here taking notes?" Mm-hmm. But it just, there's some things that should be clarified, but absolutely the people who did this movie, they framed it more about Taichi and his point of view and what he's experiencing rather than Kohei, and to me, Kohei has all the story arc. Yeah. The only thing that we really want to know about Taichi is like, what's going on with like his grandfather, maybe because his parents divorced and he went to go live with his grandfather, and he's like, "I'm poor," so maybe a little bit of information there, but even that is like pretty cut and dry. There's no other real conflict to Taichi that I'm interested in, but Kohei's got so many layers to explore just from his point of view, and he's the reason why the relationship is special, because for Taichi, Kohei is just another person in his life, but for Kohei, Taichi is like the person in his life. Right.
So I think the manga does a bit more 50-50 with them as the main character, but I think I think it frames Taichi as the main character, and he does get growth throughout the manga. The problem is that growth happens after the events of this movie ends. In the manga afterwards, that's when Taichi begins to grow as a person, if I remember correctly. So I think they were trying to stick almost too close to the manga in some ways, and instead of making an adaptational change of making Kohei the true main character and it being from his perspective, they were trying to stick to the manga, which was a mistake. Because you only have an hour. You have an hour to tell the story. Who's the one that's growing? Who has the character arc here? It's Kohei. It's Kohei learning that he has someone that he can rely on now.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I absolutely agree. And because I didn't read the manga, I didn't realize that Taichi was supposed to be the main character. I felt like Kohei was the main character the whole time, and that they were spending too much time on this not main character. Right. And that choices, you know? But I think that there are some good things in this movie. I think the actor who played Kohei played him very well. My favorite moment is the second hamburger bento, and he's like, "What do you think of the hamburger?" And he's like, "It's good." And you could just see his face open up. I'm like, "Oh, the baby." So I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed like kind of his very subdued emotional reaction, because in a funny way, his emotional reactions almost mirror his hearing. Because his hearing is very kind of, everything is muffled and muted, and the only person he hears clearly is Taichi. Well, the only person that he shows any variance of emotion to is Taichi. So I thought that was a really neat choice for acting, to have his acting mirror his hearing state in a lot of ways. Also, I liked that the way that they did the audio during his moments where his tinnitus was really acting up. And it made me mourn the fact that I was having to watch subtitles, because if I was a Japanese native speaker and I was experiencing this movie without subtitles, when the doctor's talking to him or when other people are talking to him, I wouldn't understand what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be me getting to experience his world in real time. Whereas for me, I'm getting the subtitles and I'm understanding everything everybody's saying. So I still understand his difficulties because I can tell that the sound is off. But it would be neat to be like, oh, wow, he really can't understand anything.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I think was a neat choice for them to do for filming it. But I just mourn the fact that I don't speak Japanese.
Right. That definitely does work better in the manga because, like, even in the translation, they, like, smudge the words when that happens. Like, that's their way of showing it. So you're like, I can't read that. And you're like, okay. That's how they show, like, the cutting of his audio in life, I guess.
Yeah. So I think that was a good choice. For Taichi, there's a couple of things that I would do different for him if I could change him. Number one, I probably would make it to where he spent a little bit more time kind of poking at Kohei. Because he talks a lot. Taichi talks a lot in this.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't feel like he's talking to Kohei. He's talking around Kohei.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would have been a better choice to have them actually have conversations. Even if Taichi's still talking a bit more, if maybe he asked more questions. That way you get the sense that he's as invested in Kohei as Kohei is in him.
Right.
Because then it would make sense for them to have a romance because he's asked the questions and he's been trying to get to know this person better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He does just seem to be like, I understand you completely now. And it's like, how? You've known him for 5 minutes of this movie. Like, I don't know how this happened.
Yeah, so that would be what I'd do different for him is I'd have them have more of a conversation. The friend that brought up Miho, which that plot, that was such a stupid plot device.
They could have took that out of this. They didn't really need that.
Yeah, the friend that brought up Miho, I feel like he also could have been a good person to bounce Taichi's confusion off of. Like, I could see if in the relationship between them during that time that Kohei was gone and Taichi could get in contact with him, if they had spent more time, Taichi, not just explaining, oh, he's a good person, he's this, that, the other, during that big exposition dump that they did, but also like, you know, what do you know about him? And then if he wasn't asking the questions of Kohei himself, his friend could be like, well, maybe you don't know, but the story around the school is this, that, and the other happened, you know? And that would have been good. And then it could have been like, you know, I'm having these feelings for him, but I don't know if it's because I feel sorry for him or because I genuinely like him. And his friend could have kind of worked his way into that. But I feel like there was more work for his friend to do relationship wise to be of assistance to the romance that he didn't get an opportunity to do.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah. Other than the whole Miho thing.
Right.
But I mean, the bones are there. The bones are there for something interesting, and I would love to see more BL material that deals with disabilities. Mm-hmm. Only because when we think about humanity, we think about the default person, and everything else outside the default person is an abnormality, is something different, out of the ordinary, a minority. Mm-hmm. And so when we're thinking BL, we're thinking, you know, cisgendered male, possibly gay, but in some BLs they're not, they're straight, but just fall for this one guy. And all of their limbs work, they can hear, they have great speech, mm-hmm. nothing is amiss.
Right.
And most of the time they're also rich and devastatingly handsome. Mm-hmm. But having a BL with somebody who is experiencing one other real life challenge as well as dealing with their sexuality would be very interesting to see, especially because in real life, I've read and watched videos for people who deal with, you know, I'm a gay male, but I'm also paralyzed from the waist down. And a lot of my partners question, will I be able to have sex with them? What will sex entail? And that kind of thing. And so bringing that into a storyline could be very interesting because it is one more layer to a character's humanity and how are they dealing with that. And also, you know, the universal concept of everybody wants to see themselves on screen. And I think there is a population out there that would love to see themselves represented, and showing somebody who's got, you know, sight issues, hearing issues, mobility issues, those things established would be really beneficial to the people who are watching this who feel like they never see themselves on screen.
Right. I think the manga does a better job of that for sure. I think the manga is giving you everything that you're asking for. I don't know. I think you should read it. I think you might like it.
I feel like if that's what I'm asking for and that's what the manga has, then how did they like screw the pooch so bad with the movie? I get it's an hour, but like there's a way to get around that.
Yeah, they just didn't figure it out. Yeah, I don't know. I've been reading this manga for many years now, so I just never saw the movie. So when we were like, hey, we need a quickie for next week because of timing issues, it was like, this was like the first thing I thought of, just because we do a lot of Thai ones, and we did a Japanese one last week, but it's nice to expand outward, you know.
Oh yeah, and I have no problem with this. I don't think that this was a bad recommendation. In fact, I really think this is a good thing for us to watch and experience for what we do, because we've had all kinds of discussions here. We've talked about TV shows that we love. We've talked about short series that we love. We've talked about TV shows that we hated. And I think having the spectrum just goes to show, like, we're not here to talk about only our biases. We're not here to only talk about the stuff that's the most popular thing in the world. We're really here about doing something that both of us love, which is thinking about boys and boys love. So, so I think that this is a valid conversation. Also, because it's a different kind of bad. You know, when I think of End of Love and what was bad about End of Love, what was bad about the first End of Love is terrible actors. That flat out was what it was. The plot wasn't even that bad. It just had terrible actors and terrible execution. When I think of the second End of Love, a terrible story.
Yeah.
Decent actors, bad production, a terrible story. When I think of Red Wine and the Dark Knight, I think of, again, a terrible story. This is different. This has passable acting. This has a decent story. This time, the pacing and the directorial choices totally threw this thing off. And we don't see that very often in the stuff that we watch. At least I don't think so. The closest we've come to directorial choices really throwing off an entire series would be Why Are You?
Yeah, for sure.
And even that was like COVID effective. So we're not sure if COVID hadn't hit, would we get the same product in the end? And more than likely we wouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just announced a side miniseries for Dune Blue. So.
Yeah. So I'm not even going to rank this one. I'm not doing that because I don't want to be mean. I'm not going to rank it because I feel like it's not fair, because I feel like by ranking this movie, I'm also critiquing the manga, and it sounds like the manga has so much more to offer. So like if I was ranking this movie, I would give it a 5, like a smooth 5.
I think it's okay to rank it, and because they're two different things. So like you can say, well, I like the Harry Potter movies, but I don't like the books, or vice versa. So yeah, that's fair. I'd give it a 6. It's pretty okay. I mean, it's not like the best thing I've ever seen, but it's cute. And if you're like, I just need it's like a good rainy day movie. You're like, it's raining outside, I'm stuck here.
Literally, it's a rainy day movie.
Yeah, you're like, I'm just gonna order a pizza and have a nice time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about it and just kind of shooting the shit here, so I have a legitimate gripe about these after series specials. So when we did the review for Tharn-type, we talked very briefly about the special Tharn-type movie, but we really didn't dwell in it that much because there wasn't much to dwell in that special movie. But when people add stuff after the series is over, I have a problem with that in that, one, it's not always accessible, which is really shitty when
Right.
you've invested your time in a show and then all of a sudden, like, we're doing the special episodes, we're going to pay for them. Or we're going to put them on a platform where not everybody can see them. So that's annoying. But then, two, I feel like it's an excuse for them to retcon a lot of things or for them to, like, try to fill in plot holes, but do a very, like, lazy job of it. And I kind of feel like if you feel like there's that much more material to explore and there's so much more story to be told, just do another season.
Right.
Instead of doing the 3 or 4 episode one-off shit, because it doesn't fit with everything else. It really doesn't. And it doesn't feel like it's a part of the same universe a lot of the time. Like, the closest I've ever come to feeling like secondary material fit in the universe was the Soda's episode of Our Sky.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like it should have been the last episode of Soda's S. You like you're about to cry.
No, I just think it's such a good episode. That's the best. That is the best Sodas related thing. Is that one specific episode? I will go down. That is the best Sodas related thing.
Yes, and it told the way it was done. It told an entire story in a way that felt very much like it fit in with the rest of the series, with the way the characters were shown and, everybody's job and everything else, without, making you feel like you needed 15 more episodes in order to fill it out. But like the Thorn type movie, the reason why we didn't have much to say about it is because really it was an excuse to see what Thorn's relationship with Type's parents would be. It really wasn't something that we got because it filled in more gaps in the storyline. Like the part with Thorn and Long, you guys could have thrown that away. I didn't need that.
It honestly felt like they were like, well, we recorded, like they filmed enough content. They like had this whole episode that they had filmed and then they were like, well, this doesn't fit with what we're trying to say, so we'll just make it a movie. And then they threw in extra bits of scenes that were like cut from other episodes maybe.
Yeah, and it didn't add to the story. It didn't move the characters forward that much. It seemed unnecessary. It was cute and we had fun, but it felt very unnecessary. And so I don't like these special episodes unless they really have something to say. And Soda's S, the Our Sky episode, really had something to say because it had something to say about what is the future of a relationship between Kongpab and Arthur.
Yeah.
Because now they're at a point where it's not that Artith is trying to get a job and live his adult life. Now it's Kongpab trying to live his adult life and pursuing his dream. And, they've had to deal with a fairly long relationship and dealing with, coming out the closet and everything else between them. But can a relationship survive when one of you is hundreds of miles away? How do you deal with that?
Right.
But yeah, that is my rant. Also, I have to mention 2 things, and if I don't mention them, they're going to drive me fucking bonkers. When we did the Tharn type review, I meant to tell everybody what you said to me that totally fucked up my head. You told me in our little chat on Twitter that Tharn looks like Junghyun from SHINee.
Mm-hmm.
That fucked with my head the entire rewatch.
Why?
It fucked with my head because on the one hand, I could totally see it, but then on the other hand, like, something's not right and I don't know what it is. Then I realized what the problem was. Mew does not look like Junghyun. Mew looks like as if Junghyun and Top from Big Bang had a child.
Yeah.
Like, it's like from here up, he's Top, and then from here down, he's Junghyun. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But that's what it is like. And also, you need to tell them what you said Kohei looks like.
Oh my God. I spent the good first half hour of I Can Hear the Sunspot just sitting there being like, Kohei looks real familiar. Did I see him in something? I don't watch a lot of Japanese dramas. Maybe he looks like Ohm a little bit. Got the big eyes and like the pouty mouth. Maybe it's Ohm. And then I was like, oh my God, he looks like Sooyoung from Girls' Generation, but like Sooyoung from Genie with like that short bob. That's what he looks like. I was like, oh, it's like the same chestnut brown too. Oh, this is so weird. Then the whole time I was watching that movie, I'm like, why is Sooyoung here? Girl, where's the girls' generation come back? Get back to Korea. Please make that album. How did you
I was so glad I had already watched the movie when you said that, because I'm like, he was going to ruin something else for me, and I'm not going to let that happen.
But you see it, right? Like, it does look
I do see it, but I'm glad that I didn't see it while I was watching, because that would have fucked me up. Because, like I said, you really fucked me up while I was watching I spent the entire time being like, yes, but no. Yes, but no. But once I settled in my mind, I'm like, no, it's Top and Jonghyun. That's what it is. And then after that, I felt settled again. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're doing something different this time. I'm going to give you the manga of the day, and Mason's going to give you the Instagram of the day.
That's true.
Because we're both supremely unprepared. So, Mason, would you like to give us your Instagram of the day, please?
Yeah, let me pull it up. So my Instagram of the day is Naninai, spelled Naninei. This is Nine. He plays Kit on Two Moons 2. He just has a really fun Instagram. He has a lot of good, like, photos he took himself, photos his friends took. I mean, some ads, of course. But overall, I think he has a really nice Instagram. He's really pretty. Like, he just looks really pretty. And he just has a really good smile. Like, he just has a lot of really cute photos. So I'm just going to scroll a little bit. Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. He just has a nice Instagram. I support it. Yeah.
He's very genderless to me in a lot of ways. Like, there are some times when he photographs and it comes across with a very feminine energy, and there's other times when he photographs and it comes across with a very masculine boy energy. But yeah, he's very gender neutral to me in a lot of ways. I just think that everyone would find him attractive.
Yeah.
So appreciate that. So my manga of the day is one that I read online. It's called Room to Room. It is a Korean manhwa that has been translated. I think you can watch it at Tappy Tunes. But it is the story of two roommates. One is Im Do-won, and the other roommate is, what is his character's last name? Can't remember now, but his first name is Chamin, and I only remember it because it sounds like Chongmin to me, and Chongmin from TVXQ is fine as fuck. Anyway, Do-won and Chamin meet at their freshman orientation for university, and they're friends for a little while before Do-won's roommate moves out, and Chamin needs to live closer to campus, so he agrees to occupy the other room in that apartment. So their rooms are side by side. Well, Chamin has a really bad breakup with his girlfriend, and it causes him to have sleepless nights. So he goes to a doctor to get medication to help him sleep better. But it causes him to have sexsomnia. And so every night he goes into his roommate's bedroom, and him and his roommate have wild animalistic sex. And during the day, Chamin never mentions it, never says anything about it. They're just friendly. And so the story is about the fact that Do-won has always had a crush on Chamin, and he thinks that maybe his crush is being reciprocated because of the nighttime activities, because he doesn't realize what's happening. And then kind of what happens to their relationship as Do-won keeps getting these mixed signals, but also as the nighttime activities, the emotions from that start to bleed into their daytime activities, culminating in finally the reveal of what has been happening, and then trying to reform their relationship once they both realize what's been happening this whole time. So that is the story. I will say, trigger warning though, there is a scene in the story, or a chapter in the story, that was really hard for me, and I'm a cisgendered straight woman, but Chamin is at school and the kids have been calling him gay, and at one point they decide to prove to him that he's gay by getting out broomsticks. And that's as far as I'm going to go.
Okay.
So I say that to just say if that kind of thing is triggering for you, if it is something that would be difficult for you to read, a lot of his inability to sleep, a lot of his relationship problem he had previously, a lot of his problems with his roommate, soon to be lover, whatever, come from that particular incident and the unresolved emotional trauma of that incident. So it's important, it matters in the story, but at the same time, it was very hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my manga today. And it's completed, which is always great.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten to the point where I refuse to read anything that's ongoing. Like, I desperately want to read Painter of the Night, but I can't do it because it's not finished, and I'm scared. All right, so you guys, I know that on the last episode that we did together, we said we were going to review Game Boys next week. But Game Boys surprised us all and said they're going to add 3 episodes. So they're not going to be over yet. So we can't review them. They're not over. So we decided that we are going to review the history series. This is the dream project for both of us.
The reason we're here today.
pretty much. It really, our conversations about history make our days count are probably the reason why we're doing this currently,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of prompted both of us to get even more involved with the boys love scene.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like dramas. I mean, Mason has always been on the boys love scene in terms of manga and the like, but in terms of dramas, I think it really pushed us there.
Mm-hmm.
It is the gold standard for boys love. At least make our days count.
Mm-hmm.
All 9 episodes are the gold standard of boys love, and it is something that we've talked about doing for quite a while. It's something I've always wanted to do for a long time, and since we're kind of in between completed series, I think this is the perfect time to do so. So the schedule is, we will be doing season 1, all of season 1 next week. We will do all of season 2 the week after that. Then we will spend 1 week talking about Trapped by itself. And then finally, we will do a week talking about Make Our Days Count by itself.
Mm-hmm.
But Make Our Days Count, just so you can understand, is practically perfect in every way. It is the Mary Poppins of boys love. And I would highly encourage you to make sure you have watched Make Our Days Count before we talk about it. You're being warned now. You've got 3 weeks to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be no discussion of anything problematic. It will be nothing but Mason and I sitting here with stars in our eyes, just like, ah!
For the first hour, and then we need to spend an hour on episode 10, but...
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, what episode? That doesn't count.
I'm telling you, Make Our Days Count lives rent-free in my mind. I'm paying it rent to be in my mind.
Honestly, like I don't own any boys love merchandise or memorabilia except for the Make Our Days Count photo book. I don't own a single thing from any other series, but I had to when I knew that existed, I had to have it. Because that show, everything that we've talked about that is a problem for other shows, it's like they knew.
It's so good.
Yeah, so rather than go ahead and do the review now, I want to wait until we've watched it again, because then we can pick up on a lot of really cute things. But History, the first series is available on YouTube. It's also on Viki, but I'm going to be watching it on YouTube because you have the speed option to watch them. And the second series, or the second season, is also available on YouTube, which I'll be watching the second season on YouTube as well, because again, you have the option to speed watch. Whereas Trapped and Make Our Days Count, when we watch them on Viki, I'll be having to watch them in regular time, which is not a problem because they're both very good, but it's gonna take a while to get through them because of having to watch them in regular time, because we're talking again 10 episodes, an hour each, 10 hours. That's a lot of time. Yeah, but I can't wait, you guys. I really hope you're as excited as we are, because, well, at least as I am. I'm super excited to get to make our days count. Like, I'm willing to watch the other ones just kind of to establish the fact that as the series went on, it got better and better and better. That I just can't wait to talk about Wayne. I cannot wait to talk about Wayne, that fucking guy. That fucking guy.
So talented.
Every time that gif of him riding Chunchi's lap shows up on my timeline, I stop and watch it loop at least 5 times. Every single time. Like, I never skip it. That one where the door opens and the parents come home and I never skip it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually created a gif of that show based on the beginning of episode 6. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
No.
I can't show it to you because this is a family program. But episode 6, Make Our Days Count. If they had moving tattoos, I might would invest.
Mm.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you for dealing with us in our, this is kind of our Sachi weekend for both of us. We're both going through things. Some of us emotionally, others of us physically, like moving and stuff. But we just appreciate you. This is not, I don't think that a lot of people are going to be watching this particular episode of ours just because it's not a popular series, but there are those of you who watch everything that we do, regardless of how popular it is. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that your encouragement, your comments, the things that you say, and the likes that you give us really help us feel like we're being heard and that what we're adding to YouTube is valuable. So I really, really appreciate you guys for everything that you've done to encourage us to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Thank you to anyone that comments. We always really appreciate any comment.
We love a good comment.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All
I'm bad
right.
at saying thank you.
All right, I think that's it, guys.
Right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.